everybody, we are back today for some black metal. And in this lesson we're going to be looking at just a few voicings and ways of playing. There's a strong technique focus here on picking, and also the voicings are quite small, but they're very dark and they work very effectively for this style. So the sound I'm using is from the old school black metal pack by Scott Elliott of Chernobyl Audio. The preset I'm using is Painful Cult, KVLT. The other one that I used was Keltic Cult, or Keltic KVLT. So I put one on one side, one on the other, blended quite well. The bass I'm using is Eurobass 3 and the drums are Crim drums. So let's start with the voicings we're going to use and then we'll look at the picking pattern. What we start with is an octave of the open 5th string A and the 7th fret on the 4th string. Both are A notes. And then we transform into a B flat major third. But if we combine that with the A, we get this nice dissonance between the A and the B flat. Combine that then with the D note, all 3 strings, and we get this. So it's a very dark, dissonant voicing, perfect for this style. To pick through it, what we're going to do is we're going to utilize a little bit of hammer-on technique just to make it a bit easier so we can make it flow. You could do it as a picking exercise, but as indicated in the transcription, I'm going to pick the first 2, hammer to 8 on the 4th, and then I'm going to do some more picking around the 3rd and 4th strings before finishing with a pull-off from 9th to 7th, and then more picking around the 8th and 7th fret on the 3rd and the 4th string. So let's have a look at bar 1. I'm going to pick this through 2 times, and it's going to be a lot slower than the performance. The time signature is 12/8, and the tempo is 1/8/2. So what I might do to count in, I'll just do 3 taps in the tempo of the 12/8, and then you can come in and join me. Now you've got to do in the next bar is almost exactly the same thing, except at the end, we're going to include this G note on the 2nd string to include with our previous voicing. So if we play all the notes from the open 5th, 8th fret on 4th, 7th on 3rd, 8 on 2nd, we're going to be playing a G minor chord with an A bass. So that note there, the G note, just gives a bit of color. Let's have a listen to bar 2. I'll play this 4 times. Bar 3 is identical to bar 1, and then in the 4th bar we're going to do a variation. And what we do in the variation is we just transfer a very similar idea, and in fact the picking and string patterns I think basically identical, but the notes are a little bit different. And from my understanding, this whole piece is in A Phrygian. There's perhaps a little bit of a deviation here or there, but for the most part the flavor we're getting is the A Phrygian scale. So it's a good time to just look at that in the open position just to give you an idea of where all these notes are coming from. Let's play the A Phrygian in open position starting on the 5th string. I'll include the minor 2nd here going back downward or this way, pitch-wise. And you'll notice in this idea, like I said before, pretty much the same picking and string pattern as bar 1, just with these notes instead. So let's have a look at this bar. So our key intervals here are the 5th, which is fret 2 on the 4th string. Next door is the minor 2nd. We've got the octave, and then we've also got the minor 2nd. Sorry, this one here is the minor 6, I should say, the 3rd fret on the 4th string, and then the minor 2nd at fret 3 on the 3rd string. So a good exercise you can do is to play the root tone, in this case the open 5th string A, and play each interval with the root tone to get the sound of the interval. You could also do that with the previous idea. Or you could include the 8th fret with it. And by that I mean the 8th fret on the 4th string. So that pretty much covers the first half, because we're just going to repeat in the 6th bar what we did in bar 2, and then in bar 7 it's just going to be a repeat of bar 1 and 3. And in fact I think that is bar 5 as well. So after that point we're into the tritone intervals, and a tritone just means 3 whole steps. So if we look at the first one, apart from the first 2 notes where we play both the A notes, like this. This note below on the 6th fret is the tritone in the lower octave from this A note. So you could look at it 2 ways, as the lower note of the tritone from the A. You could also look at it as a root tone of E flat with the tritone of A. So here would be root tone to the E flat as the 5th and lower, or the flat and 5th and lower octave. And you could just reverse it, start with the E flat as the root tone and A as the tritone. It's not really going to matter a lot in this case because the sound is going to be pretty much identical anyway, but I just thought I'd give you an extra perspective on another way of looking at it. What happens here with the picking pattern is a little bit tricky because we're going to be doing a hammer-on from the open to the 6th fret on the 5th string. One way you can approach this part is you could isolate just the picking. We won't do that first. We'll just look at what it actually looks and sounds like first, and then I'll show you what it looks like with just the picking and percussive. So let's play bar 8, and this is where this part begins. I'll tap 3, then we'll come in. Now if you pay careful attention to my picking hand, you'll notice I'm not using strict alternate picking. So I'm going to actually do a couple of double downstrokes. Let's watch again. Watch carefully the right hand. Now you could strictly alternate pick it. I don't, and it's just the way I prefer to do it, but both ways are valid, and whatever way works for you is probably the best way. Now the good news here is that pattern actually continues from bar to bar. The only difference is we're going to change positions. So we're going to play in this position for 2 bars, the position we just looked at. Then we're going to move it back into the, I guess because I use my middle and third finger, technically the first position, but let's just say frets 2 and 3 just to make it simple. So we've got frets 6 and 7, 2 and 3, 4 and 5, and they're our 3 positions. So what I'll do now is I'll just play this whole section at a slower tempo. So you can look at it, play along and practice if you would like, but it's essentially the same thing being done again and again with the picking hand. It's just that the left hand changes position, but even the left hand is really just doing the same thing, just in a different pitch, but the pattern's exactly the same. Here we go after 3 taps. Ending with the trusty A power chord, and that is pretty much that. So practice well, have fun, enjoy the backing track, and I'll see you soon for another lesson on another day. Until then, bye for now.